segundo. Okay. Good morning to all. My name is Máximo Torero Callen. I am the Chief Economist of FAO, and I will be your moderator for today. Thank you very much for being with us today in this very important session of transforming food systems together, aligned action, investment, and accountability. Today, the session will start with a first panel of the principals from the RBA. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we meet today at a moment of converging crises, conflict, climate shocks, economic stress, and rising inequalities, placing immense pressure on countries, security, and malnutrition. Yesterday, we launched the SOFI report, which all the agencies participated, where you see the numbers that we are facing. In many cases, governments must navigate a landscape of fragmented initiatives that do not reflect their priorities or realities. Yet, transforming the agri-food systems is not optional, it is essential, and is also at the same time a great opportunity. Let me repeat that, it's also a great opportunity. These systems feed 4.5 billion people, but they are highly vulnerable to shocks and contribute significantly to greenhouse gas emissions, water use, and biodiversity loss. But the first thing is that they provide the right to food. Without decisive coordination action, current patterns of production and consumption will only deepen inequality, hunger, and environmental. This action marks a shift from reflection to action. It challenges us to start from what countries need, not from siloed offers and projects. Transformation must be country-led, grounded in political will, and backed by long-term aligned support from all our agencies, the international financial organizations, the private sector, and civil society. Today, we focus on real-world solutions, strategic partnerships, and accountability for progress that is measurable, inclusive, and lasting. Let's move forward together and pursue this with urgency. I have the real pleasure of having with me a high-level panel of the three principals of the RBAs. Mr. Xu Dongyu, Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, Mr. Álvaro Lario, President of the International Fund of Agricultural Development, IFAD, and Mrs. Cindy McCain, Executive Director of the World Food Programme. Let me now start with the panel and invite Mr. Xu Dongyu, Director General of Food and Agriculture Organization, to give his remarks. Director General, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Yesterday, we launched the 2025 State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World software report. As earmarked on this discussion on the transformation of agri-food systems, it is critical that we are reminded of the global situation to have a clear understanding of the critical need for closer collaboration on the need to align our action for investment on the need to hold ourselves accountable. In 2024, 677 million people faced hunger. In Africa, 307 million people, 20% of the population experienced hunger. I repeat here, I saw not so many ministers was there yesterday evening. This is far too many, especially when they compared to other regions like Latin America and the Caribbean, where the 34 million people, or just the 5.1% of population, faced hunger. We have 90 million more people in hunger than in 2020, 5 years ago, and 100 million more than 10 years ago in 2015. 512 million people are still expected to face the chronic hunger by 2030, with 6 out of the 10 in Africa. While some progress has been made, the numbers are still too high. Collectively, we can change this trend, especially in Africa And I'm pleased to see so many African leaders at this summit to discuss together a concrete roadmap going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, growing inequalities around the world are also magnifying these numbers. Depending on the drivers of food insecurity and malnutrition in each country, there are several pathways to transform our agri-food systems. This includes the portfolios of well-designed policy, investment, and the legislations or governance in general that are aligned to national pathways, as well as the innovative, inclusive, and equitable solutions to financing them. Most countries in need have not been able to mobilize sufficient resources to fund the necessary policies, programs, and the interventions. I visited most of Africa. I had dialogue not only with the Minister of Agriculture, also leaders. And money is devastatingly needed, of course, but also we have to use money more efficient, more effective, more accountable. Then you build more money come back to invest in your country. That's always positive, recurrent what we want. And therefore, the transformation of agri-food system is based on science, data, and evidence, with the people and the planet at its center. That's why during past years, we strengthened all the flagship publications and knowledge notes and data-based, evidence-based recommendations. We try our best to be the professional as possible, because by nature, FAO is a technical agency. We are not allowed too much its agenda. At least as myself, as a DG, I try to minimize. Because a lot of members also unconsciously bring their agenda, political agenda to FAO. I said, don't. If you want to play political game, go to New York. If you wanted to wording each specific phrase term by footnotes and not footnotes, go to WTO. That's a natural, different nature of life. FAO, we should focus on basic things, food and agriculture, to have the vulnerable people. I know some representatives are very difficult to transform themselves to fit their post requirement in FAO. Have FAO or WFP or IFA. We are in principle work on for rural affairs and the farmers, smallholder farmers, and food security. I always say publicly, and not person, I'm very transparent during the past 45 years in my junior career. Until now, I'm 60 plus. I learned it from Dutch, not only Dutch. Pat, you are not Dutch anymore. This is guided by our vision of the four betters: by the production, by the nutrition, by the environment, by the life leaving no one behind. They are the strategic blueprint for transforming agri-food systems, so you can deliver on the efficiency, inclusiveness, resilience, and sustainability. They allow us to produce more with less, and to do so in a way that ensures good food for all, for today and tomorrow. Good food, not only food. Because for theoretically, you can say food, but we are in different countries, different communities, we have different kind of foods. That's very meaningful for scientific way to address. It means use the natural resource wisely, investing in innovation and adaptive, cost-effective, and climate-smart solutions. Dear colleagues, one major challenge along this path is the financing gap. I said, we are talking about improve the vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E. We should talk more about vitamin M, vitamin money. Without money, you can't move. You just stay here, stay in your village. So we need responsible, proper investment. So I very like to talk money openly. It's important. The distribution of the financing for agri-food system transformation does not adequately reach those countries or areas that are mostly needed. But of course, you can find a lot of excuse, a lot of risk. If you feel the risk, you can move, you can just stay, lay down bed. But sometimes you lay down bed, also some earthquake happen. So we should take a minimum risk to make our life different. So financial, as they said, finance should be saved for the people, for the human being, for the farmers and the food producers and all the surrounding. It's a service. Financial service is a service industry. We need to improve this targeting of financing for agri-food system. Low and low-middle incomes countries face the most acute challenges in terms of food insecurity and nourishment, suffering from protracted food crisis and have economic that are highly dependent on the agri-food system. When the GDP less than $5,000 per capita, as the agri-food system and the rural development play the decisive role, more than 60%, based on the history of all the data from Europe to Asia to North America, Latin America, or any other part of the world. Here also, if we less than $5,000 per capita, agri-food system is so decisive. They face the greatest restriction when it comes to assessing quality, financing, give them high levels of debt, fiscal constraint, and underdeveloped agribusiness sector. The ambitious agenda that we have been discussing throughout the summit required increase and targeted investment. I'm pleased that this topic has been taken a central stage at the summit. Financing should not be only be through the public sector and the traditional donors, but it is also time to focus on close cooperation sectors. And last month in Spain, they have another specific summit on the finance, but they are local overall. But I know always rural areas investment left behind. How many people talk about the investment in rural areas? Yes, I was not there, but you can check. No surprise for me. They'll talk about the other things, not focus on rural agri-food systems enough, even their head of state. The business engagement working of the summit has been critical in bringing together this partnership as an important way forward. We must unlock the private sector investment from small enterprises to global agribusiness. Indeed, smallholder farmers or family farmers, they are real private investors. People only talk about the company or small company, but all of the world, smallholder farmers, they are real private investors. So by de-risking innovation and create an enabling environment, we have to help them. By bringing together public and private sectors for closing collaboration and promote the use of innovative and blended financing model, we will make risk coverage more affordable, scalable, and effective. That is critical for achieving agri-food system transformation. Development bankers has a vital role to play in mobilizing capitals and aligning it with the impactful, scalable, and investable or bankable in general program. Dear colleagues, we must enhance the global partnership for impact at scale. Without scale, it's just like small flowers in the greenhouse, but you can't depend on all the products from greenhouse. 99 products produced in the open field in the world. So we need a scale, all the actions and a pilot project to create a more impact. Through joint efforts, we can deliver on the evidence-based and national scale policies and programs to eradicate global hunger and malnutrition. That's why the President Lula yesterday, he called me about 1 hour. He was so happy. I said, you are largest country in CELAC. Your role is a leading role to lead the transformation in that part of the world, at least. I hope Africa members also can learn from that, from him. Politician commitment is the first driving force. we said in China during past 40 years, if you want to transform agriculture, politician commitment is the #1 driving force. Second driving force is science innovation. Third one is inclusive investment. FAO remains committed to support members in tackling these challenges, transforming them into opportunities for all, leaving no one behind. So let's work together, put all our efforts, focus on the rural development, and support the smallholder farmers, family farmers, to ensure the world free from hunger. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director General. Let me now pass the floor to Mr. Álvaro Lario, President of the International Fund of Agricultural Development from IFAD. Álvaro, please.
Good morning, everyone. Excellencies, colleagues, and dear friends, I'm pleased to open this session alongside my counterparts from FAO and World Food Programme. As the Rome-based agencies, we bring distinct but complementary mandates and tools. World Food Programme delivers in the emergency space. FAO offers technical and normative leadership, as the DG was mentioning, and IFAD is focused on medium-term investments in the first mile of rural development, addressing the root causes of hunger and poverty. But we are united by a shared purpose to end hunger, strengthen food security, and support countries in building food systems that are inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. Today, let me start with a simple truth. Policy ambition without delivery won't fit anyone. And too often, unfortunately, delivery still stops at the project level. We're here today because the world is off track, not just on SDG 2, but in building and restoring the very food systems that underpin resilience, stability, and growth. According to this year's State of Food and the Nutrition Report just launched yesterday, we're still above pre-pandemic levels. The numbers are still very alarming. 1 in 5 people in Africa and 1 in 7 in the Middle East suffering hunger. Today's food crisis is not a temporary disruption, it is systemic. It reflects political choices, financial gaps, and institutional fragmentation. And it is always the most vulnerable who pay the price. In the world's 44 least developed countries, 32 of which are here in Africa, the estimated cost of transforming food systems is 40% of their GDP. No country can bear that burden alone, and no country should have to. And yet, the SOFI report also shows that hunger numbers have diminished in Southeast and South Asia and Latin America. This progress shows that economic growth, investments, and especially political will can go a long way in tackling hunger. The stakes are high. Food systems today are under strain, fragmented, underfinanced, and too often disconnected from rural realities. Yet they hold enormous potential. Here in Africa, over 60% are linked to agri-food systems. So the challenge now is how to realize that potential at scale and in alignment with national priorities and with long-term commitment. For this reason, I'm excited to be here today to explore how to align action, investments, and accountability. The potential is clear. The question now is how to unlock it at scale and with staying power. Because food systems are not just about food production. They are about food exporting, food transformation and adding value in the countries, food storage, food distribution, food marketing, food certification. Food systems are about livelihoods, climate resilience, and economic inclusion. When they fail, rural communities bear the brunt, facing rising poverty, hunger, and exclusion. And when they function well, when they are inclusive, climate smart, and locally rooted, they create jobs, unlock markets, and drive long-term development. The potential is clear, and that's why we also need to shift the way we finance transformation. Let me share briefly how IFAD is turning these principles. First, we're backing our words with action. Our portfolio is focused on transforming food systems in rural, remote areas in low and low middle income countries. Between 2018 and 2023, we dispersed $5 billion, half of it to least developed countries and more than half to sub-Saharan Africa. More than 80% of it qualifies as official development assistance, reflecting the strong focus on this first mile. To expand our reach, we also mobilize financing almost $1 billion through capital markets. Second, partnerships are at the core of how we deliver. The Sahel is a strong example where IFAD has played a leading role in the SD3C joint program by working with FAO and World Food Programme to support over 50,000 households across Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, and Senegal. This program integrates climate-resilient agriculture, regional value chains, and supports small-scale producers across borders and across sectors. The second phase is now underway, reinforcing regional structures. Third, co-investing with the private sector. It's not enough to talk about attracting private sector. You need to also have skin in the game. That's why we have transformed our country programs and our designs to have entry points, our exit points for the private sector to take over, and investing our own money from our own balance sheet to co-invest with the private sector, and also integrate guarantees to de-risk how local financial institutions are providing credit. And fourth and final, South-South and triangular cooperation is an essential part of how we scale country-led solutions. For example, in Kenya and Guatemala, we're partnering also with the 3 Rome-based agencies with member states such as Brazil or China. We're working together to link family farms to national school feeding programs and adapting successful experiences from one region to another. These efforts are strengthening food systems so that they are local, nutrition sensitive, and inclusive while creating stable markets for smallholders. Across these examples, what matters is that we are listening to what countries, aligning our instruments and delivering together on their terms. Dear friends, food systems finance is evolving. International financial institutions are stepping up with 99% of their food systems finance focused on long-term transformation. IFAD is the second largest concessional financier for agricultural development and the largest financier in many low-income countries. Still, we can do and must do more. This means deploying new instruments that I mentioned, aligning institutional incentives, and supporting governments to unlock the potential of their food economies. This session today speaks directly to how we align policies, financial instruments, and institutional joint delivery to support country-led pathways. Let's not add to the list of declarations. Let's act ambitiously, jointly, and at scale. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, President Lario. Let me now pass the floor to Mrs. Cindy L. McCain, Executive Director of the World Food Program. Mrs. McCain.
Ministers, Excellencies, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this important dialogue. Our meeting this week comes at a very critical time. As yesterday's publication of the State of Food Security and Nutritional Report confirmed, rates of chronic hunger and malnutrition continue to rise in many parts of the world. At the same time, the global systems which move our food from field to fork are under pressure from the combined impacts of conflict, natural disasters, economic upheaval, and soaring food price inflation. Resilient, healthy, and sustainable are the cornerstone of our collective efforts to combat hunger, to address the root causes of security. Without them, we will not achieve our aims. 4 years ago, the world came together at the first Food Systems Summit. In the years since then, we've made progress, and transformation in our food systems is slowly taking shape. But it needs to go much further and move much more quickly. We need to step up our efforts and to ensure that everyone has access to nutritious, affordable food. The 3 Rome-based agencies, FAO, WFP, IFAD, are working hand in hand with national governments to support them in building food systems that serve the needs of their citizens. We understand that we must lead the way in breaking down silos and supporting joined up efforts of working. At WFP, we are committed to collaborating with partners to unlock of greater resilience through school meals programs, local procurement, social protection projects, and early warning systems. We're investing in programs that help communities prepare for and withstand future food security shocks while creating new pathways to sustainability and prosperity. Here in Ethiopia, integrated resilience programs developed by the RBAs in partnership with the government have helped vulnerable communities restore downgraded lands and create sustainable livelihoods. These green shoots of success are proof that when we act together with purpose and in partnership, we can achieve change. But real transformation demands real investment, backed by genuine accountability for delivering on agreements. Our collective challenge is to unlock finance at scale for programs proven to be effective in strengthening food systems, tackling hunger, and reducing long-term humanitarian needs. WFP stands ready to work with our partners here in Ethiopia and around the world to meet the moment and power the lasting transformation in food systems that we all want to see. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ms. McCain, Executive Director of WFP. Colleagues, with that, we finish the first high-level opening remarks. So I thank you very much the principals for being with us. And please join me in an applause to let them free to move to the other meetings. Thank you. Okay, now we move to the high-level ministerial panel. So I invite all my speakers, please, if they can come to the front. His Excellency Og Makara, Vice Chairman of Council for Agriculture and Rural Development in the Kingdom of Cambodia. The Honorable Franklin Derrick Watsi, Minister of Agriculture and Livestock of Solomon Islands. His Excellency Robert Albino Mito, Minister for Agriculture and Environment of Fisheries of the Republic of Mozambique. Mr. Marco Antonio Oviedo Cajas, Vice Minister for Rural Development, Minister of Agriculture and Livestock of Ecuador. Mr. Andreas Schaumeyer, Head of the Division Food Security and Fisheries, Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany. Mrs. Anda Ohambo, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations Global Compact. Mr. Peter Baker, President and Chief Executive Officer of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and Professor Joachim von Braun from the Center of Global Development Research, CEF, University of Bonn. Please, if you can join me here so that we can start the panel. Okay, thank you very much to my panel members for joining me here in the front. So we will start with His Excellency Og Makara, Vice Chairman of the Council for Agriculture and Rural Development of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Minister Makara, what is Cambodia doing differently to break down the silos and reduce fragmentation? How are you coordinating actions and programs for transforming the agri-food systems in Cambodia? The floor is yours, please. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to these important sessions. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, as Cambodia prepares to graduate from least significant development country status by 2029, we recognize that fragmented project-based approaches and externally driven agendas can no longer deliver the transformation we need. If we are serious about transformation, we must invest in systems, not silo, as Secretary General of UN mentioned in the plenary opening session yesterday. That's why Cambodia is charting a new course, guided by national ownership and our Pentagon Strategy Phase 1. We must putting food systems at the center of development, linking agriculture, climate resilience, nutrition, and economic growth. Our focus is on building stability in production, markets, price, and in coordination so that policies, investment, and partners align and reinforce each other. To support these transitions, we have strengthened the role of the Council for Agricultural and Rural Development, CAD, as a national coordination hub for food system, food security, and CAD leads the multi-sectorial technical working group on food security and nutrition, which underpins the third national strategy for food security and our second food system roadmap. These platforms enable ministry and development partners to engage in joint planning, integrating monitoring, and share accountabilities across sectors and levels of government. Second food system roadmaps was shaped through wide national consultation with farmers, youth, indigenous groups, civil society, development partners, and the private sector. It outlines game-changing actions aligned with the national nutrition and climate goals, including third national strategy for food security and nutrition, and our national determined contribution and 3.0. Coordination also happened on the ground. We have recently deployed commune agricultural officer in all agricultural communes to connect farmers, cooperatives, local authorities, and markets. They help ensure the integration happen not just in policy, but on the ground. At the sub-national level, we are building capacity and strengthening accountability so that local authorities can apply national strategies effectively. We are taking a whole of government approach to promote sustainable, healthy diets. This effort cut across agriculture, industry, commerce, education, health, and social protection. This is the coordination demand pool that underpins long-term food system transformation at scale. Cambodia has moved beyond standalone project to design cross-sector investment cases on climate-smart and nutrition-sensitive value chains, aquatic food system, food safety, food fortification, and food environment. These are supported by the financial strategy and an advocacy strategy to mobilize resources and public support. Excellency, distinguished delegates, as I conclude, allow me to reaffirm that if we are truly committed to transformation, we must invest in systems, not silos. We must strengthen political leadership, foster institutional coherence, and cultivate lasting partnership. What we need now is unified action, rooted in local realities, driven by national leadership, and supported by a global system that listens, aligns, and delivers in true partnership. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Minister Makara. You brought important issues of breaking silos, working together by having a national identity, a national strategy, but with the support also of the international environment. So we need to unify action to move forward, but not forgetting local realities and looking into the system approach. Thank you very much for your words. Let me now pass the floor to the Honorable Franklin Derrick Wasi, Minister of Agriculture and Livestock from Solomon Islands. Minister Derrick Wasi, how is your country coordinating efforts to ensure access to nutritious food for all, as addressing malnutrition requires cross-sectoral coordination? The floor is yours, please.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Solomon Islands, like you all know, is a small island developing state in the vast Pacific Ocean. Now, geographical isolation, climatic vulnerabilities, nutrition transition, and limited resources. In addressing the food transformation in the Solomon Islands as well as the Pacific Island region, aligning action, we're looking at collaborative and local solutions, example, school feeding programs, sourcing of local farmers, and also since we have a big ocean, we also look at coastal fisheries co-managed by the government together with the rural communities of the country. And also in aligning investment, also looking at supporting the private sector and the PPP, public-private sector, investment in infrastructure. For instance, just last week, we launched a new cassava pack house for export of frozen cassava to some markets in Australia. And also, we also have a taro pack house in Malaita province. We're also looking at exporting taro to Australia and New Zealand because we have many Pacific Islanders living in those two countries, Australia and New Zealand. And also in terms of strengthening accountability, we are also looking at the M&E, improving it so that everything is well accounted for. Also, we look at community scorecards, enables of tracking, and lastly, we're also looking at working together with SPC, FAO as usual, to empower our youth and women, invest in capacity building for those in food system. So transforming a food system in Pacific, and in Pacific, it's not just agriculture, it's equity, resilience, and sovereignty, aligning actions, investment, and accountability across all levels of society to build a sustainable and nutritious and climate resilient food systems together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Derek Warsi. You raise issues of what seeds are facing, which is significant climate vulnerabilities, limited resources. They are mostly food importing countries, and also the importance of accountability, which is extremely important. Your M&E system and your community scorecards, I think, which tracks progress and allow also to correct when things are not working as you expected and to learn from the communities which are really progressing forward. Thank you very much for your words. Let me now pass the floor to Roberto Albino Mito, Minister for Agriculture and Environment and Fisheries of the Republic of Mozambique. Albino Mito, how is Mozambique addressing the existing investment gap given the risks and shocks, especially to address the climate crisis in the case of your country? You have the floor, please.
Excellencies, distinguished guests and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of Mozambique government, we thank you all for the invitation to be here today. As I shared in Rome during our last meetings, we are at the lead for 7 months now as the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries. And what we shared in Rome is still valid. We are in a situation where the lack of coordination is the main characteristic of what we found. We found supply-driven projects facing free distribution of agri-inputs and equipments. As a consequence, it led to a lot of distortions, and also weak markets. Now we are facing addicted farmers for donations. Normally, they always wait for the government for seeds and the other inputs. So this is not sustainable, as you might know. That's why it demands a new approach, which is a new paradigm for us. We have to leap away from a poor approach and engage on farming to business. We're now changing all this approach for demand-driven, for private sector-led growth, where we provide incentives for block farmings, cluster farmings, where smallholder farmers are engaged in value chains through to-go schemes, in a very inclusive business models. It needs very strong and bold and long-term programs rather than the 5 years projects. Normally, those 5 years projects, they take 2 years to design and negotiate, 1 year to set up the implementing structures. So when they start delivering, time is over. So we have to shift from that for a long-term commitments from our partners in a very, let's say, strong and government-led programs. We have to leave room for the governments to lead our agricultural and agri-food development programs. We're also investing a lot to make sure that we bring in very strong infrastructure developments, resilient infrastructures. I have to say that because our country is facing every year. I mean, if it's not drought, heavy rainfalls, if it's not that, we have to face cyclones. So Mozambique is a very highly exposed country. That's why we need stronger investment in resilient infrastructure. So what now we are doing with World Bank, with FAO, IFAD, is to come together instead of single programs to have one single programs. We have to consolidate. Today, in my ministry, we have more than 40 PIUs, 40. Each with coordinator, finance manager, procurement officers, salvaguard, etc., etc. So we have to consolidate that in a very single PIU where we can have all the programs coming together, all the donors, all the partners coming together in a very strong agriculture development program. So we are now in a preparation, in a preparatory phase of the new program. In September, we'll be sitting with to discuss the 10 years program to develop our agriculture. And we look forward to see you all in Mozambique together to act in that program. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Roberto Albino Mito. You brought the importance of business-oriented, of an approach that will activate and move the private sector to work together with the smallholders rather than a pro-poor agenda. You also refer to need of a strong infrastructure and resilient infrastructure, especially because of the vulnerabilities to climate shocks that we will be facing, and the importance of coordination of programs and how we can bring them all together so that you can have the puzzle together to move ahead on the transformation and the plans that you have and to gain complementarities. Thank you so much for your words. Let me now pass to Mr. Marco Antonio Oviedo Cajas, Vice Minister for Rural Development, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock of Ecuador. Vice Minister Cajas, can you please explain Ecuador's strategy for rural development and improving rural livelihoods? The floor is yours.
Buenos días a todos, excelencias, a todos aquí presentes. Bueno, realmente el interés del Ecuador es asumir una agenda alimentaria transformadora. Y en este eje de intervención ha colocado a la agricultura familiar campesina como el actor relevante para que tanto los programas, tanto los cooperantes, los fondos, lleguen a conocimiento de ellos y en una visión de decisiones horizontales podamos tomar acción al respecto de lo que podemos hacer y lo que debemos hacer. En este sentido, por ejemplo, para citar estos espacios de transformación, consideramos varios elementos importantes. Había dicho en una intervención el día de ayer que para nosotros era muy importante asegurar los medios de vida de nuestros productores que están organizados. En ese sentido, entonces, por ejemplo, los sistemas alternativos de comercialización se presentan como una oportunidad importante para hacer posible esta posibilidad de cambio. Pero también era importante alinear estos temas a nivel de territorio. ¿Qué significa esto? Es que se genera un espacio de gobernanza que permita
tanto a los actores interesados, tanto a los recursos disponibles, encontrar una mesa que priorice las acciones a ejecutar. Y en esta priorización, la intención es también lograr sostenibilidad de los programas y proyectos a través del tiempo. Se entiende esto porque al ser una decisión que se toma consensuada con las comunidades beneficiarias, ellos abrazan este programa y ellos permiten que los programas se mantengan a través del tiempo. Otro elemento no menos importante también es lograr que las agendas regionales, las agendas globales y, por supuesto, nuestras propias agendas a través del Programa Nacional de Desarrollo tengan una coordinación y tengan una pertinencia, donde el objetivo es lograr, obviamente, soberanía alimentaria, seguridad alimentaria, pero también elementos no tan claros a veces en el territorio como la acción desde la visión de ser climáticamente inteligentes y la acción a través de la gobernanza territorial. Les doy un ejemplo de lo que queremos decir tomando, por ejemplo, la acción climática inteligente. A lograr a través de los cialcos una producción que es cercana a los centros de consumo, estas lógicas, estos circuitos cortos de producción, consumo, permiten que haya una eficiencia energética, por ejemplo. No se requiere mucha movilización, transporte, entonces no se requiere mucha conservación, frío, entonces esto permite que podamos hacer una acción climáticamente inteligente. Y otro escenario no mencionado es que a través de estas articulaciones con agricultura familiar campesina generamos lo que se llama comunidades de aprendizaje, donde estamos compartiendo las técnicas disponibles para lograr la producción de insumos localmente a través de lo que llamamos bioinsumos. Estos bioinsumos permiten entonces el manejo de la salud del suelo, el manejo de la salud de las plantas, el manejo de la nutrición. Y otra vez estos elementos contribuyen decididamente a que la acción que es climáticamente responsable, que sea climáticamente inteligente. Eso es lo que estamos haciendo desde el Ecuador para afrontar estos desafíos. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, ministro Cajas. Usted ha levantado temas importantes, que es trabajar con la comunidad campesina, lo que llamamos los agricultores familiares, y cómo poder tenerlos ellos también en el proceso de toma de decisiones, y cómo aprender de la tecnología local que ya ha aprendido a ser resiliente a estos shocks climáticos. Gracias por sus comentarios. Let's now move to Mr. Andreas Schomager, Head of the Division of Food Security and Fisheries, Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany. Mr. Schomager, in your experience with the Federal Ministry of Germany, could you please describe how aligning investments with actions and national priority accelerate agri-food system transformation? The floor is yours, please.
Excellencies, colleagues, and thank you for giving Germany the floor. Let me refer to the launch of the SOFI report yesterday. Food insecurity remains high, malnutrition is virulent, and fiscal space is shrinking globally, both in partner countries and ODA. The withdrawal of key partners for international cooperation is not just a financial issue, it is also results in the loss of political partnership and leadership. This directly affects our collective ability to support the most vulnerable people and communities, especially women, youth, smallholder fishers, and farmers in remote areas. Despite these challenges, Germany assumes its responsibility. My minister, Rem Alabali Radovan, has presented her priorities just recently. Germany remains firmly committed to combating hunger and poverty. We will continue our efforts to transform agriculture and food systems globally in full alignment with the Rio Conventions and the Agenda 2030. Making agriculture and food system resilient and sustainable requires even stronger partnerships and innovative solutions, in particular in light of decreasing funding. Germany is already to addressing the root causes of hunger and food insecurity beyond the short-term humanitarian aid by taking action at various levels. Evidence shows that investing in resilience and vulnerable people and communities not only addresses these root causes, but also reduces dependency on humanitarian and on the long term also on development assistance. Let me point to an innovative instrument with German support, the Changing Lives Transformation Fund. Has a collaboration between WFP, UNHCR, and FAO, for example, in Chad, where the agencies jointly supported government's Hanguina initiative, rehabilitating 100,000 hectares of land, enabling farmers, including refugees and host communities, to achieve self-sufficiency. Effective development cooperation and domestic policy, reliable data, without high-quality information, or our decision-making stands on shaky grounds. This is why we support data infrastructure, the IPC system, the Global Hunger Index, and national information platforms on nutrition. Instruments like the Global Network Against Food Crisis and the Food Security Preparedness Plans enable coordinated emergency responses. We look forward to engage more closely with the global network. Mobilizing agribusiness finance is another priority. We are proud to partner with IFAD on the private sector financing program, which we, alongside Canada, Finland, and others, are supporting. I'm particularly pleased that we have developed compensation, allowing smallholders to make business cases out of their eco-services, such as carbon storage. These approaches we should take to scale, as we see great results already. Let me underline another role of government, not as financier, but as enabler. Public subsidies for agriculture are crucial as lever for transforming agriculture. However, according to FAO, a significant portion of these over $800 billion per year are price distorting, harmful to the environment and climate. The BMZ has therefore launched a project with World Bank to reorientate these harmful subsidies toward climate resilient agriculture, and we expect substantial shifts. So investment needs an enabling environment, robust political frameworks such as the African Union's CAADP Kampala agenda can create certainty and guidance, and improve access to markets, good regulatory environments, and global policy coherence. Let me allow connection to the UN Ocean Conference in Nice 6 weeks ago. Aquatic foods are fundamental to food security and poverty, especially as climate change and biodiversity loss increasingly threaten our ocean and the livelihood of millions of fishermen and fisherwomen. This is why it is important that as many WTO members as possible ratify the Fisheries Subsidies Agreement. Germany is dedicated to support not only through WTO Fish Fund, but also through our bilateral cooperation. Last but not least, we will increase our efforts together with international partners to accelerate school meals. Young children and youth are our future. With the Young Leader program at the UNFSS Hub, we are investing in this future. The UNFSS Youth Declaration on food system transformation is an output of this journey managed by the UNFSS Hub. Let me finish with a pledge from the youth leaders, a call to action for more accountability and transparency. Germany is happy to support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andreas. And you brought important topics, the role on public goods, which is linked to data provision, the IPC, which is what alerts us about acute food insecurity, the global hunger against food crisis, but also the importance of mobilizing agri-finance financing for the smallholder farmers and to be able to link them, given the situation that we are facing of urgency because of the levels of hunger, but also because of the problems of less resources available. And finally, one of the issues that we are working together on efficiency on the support to agriculture by governments and how we can minimize the distortions and we can use them tech impact that we're looking. And the last point of the connection to aquatic foods, both through oceans but also aquaculture, is central because of the efficiency of the returns in terms of nutritious elements to consumption. So thank you very much. And now let me pass the floor to Mrs. Sanda Ojambo, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations Global Compact. Mrs. Sanda Ojambo, considering the critical role of the UN Global Compact, could you please tell us why is corporate accountability important and what is the role of the UN agencies on setting norms and providing guidance on corporate accountability in the agri-food system transformation? As we have seen today, in these 2 days, there is a significant participation of the private sector. So that's great news. But how we can bring a corporate accountability in the agri-food system transformation? The floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Maximo, and Excellencies, distinguished guests. It's a real pleasure to be here to join the panel and speak about some perspectives from private sector. I would just like to start actually by acknowledging a great partnership between FAO, Maximo, yourself, and my colleague from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, Peter Backer, who is also on the panel. Collectively, we have mobilized the private sector to join this Food System Summit stocktake through the Business Engagement Group. And indeed, as you said, Massimo, it's a great honor and privilege to be able to see private sector engage in this important agenda. And I know we'll probably speak about those areas of engagement, and they're wide, because indeed we're talking about food systems, and that includes many areas: nutrition, infrastructure, water, looking at climate resilience, jobs, incomes, markets, growth, supply chains. It's not only large businesses, it's also small and medium enterprises that are so close to the communities and the individuals who are truly at the heart of this food systems transformation agenda. I also just quickly want to pay tribute to David Navarro, key contributor to our business engagement group, and really helped shape the investment dialogues, which I know many of you are attending, that are bringing together governments, private sector investors, to really discuss the importance of the need to invest in food systems holistically. A couple of reflections about accountability. I think first, just to mention that the notion of accountability, I think, was first brought to the table in 2023 by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. And he did mention the importance of the centrality of corporate accountability for much stronger collaborative mechanisms as a whole. We acknowledge we're working governments, private sector, civil society, in a partnership mechanism. And it's important that all of us play our part and deliver on our commitments. Corporate accountability is based indeed on the principle that business must be responsible for its own operations, its impact on people and planet. At the UN Global Compact, we exercise this to looking at issues such as human rights, labor, the environment, and anti-corruption. And all of these are so critical to sustainable food systems transformation. It's good for business. It helps companies build credibility, competitiveness, and resilience, but it's also good for society and good for food systems. Let me talk more specifically about corporate accountability and why we feel it's an important agenda to bring to the table. I think businesses must play the lead in fostering environmental, social, and governance responsibility. We see that through consumers who will also exercise choice in purchasing as they wish, but for businesses, because profitability is truly important. We know that as businesses continue to collaborate with governments, we do need a common mechanism to allow comparability, to monitor progress and demonstrate impact. And we've seen so much of that impact in the sessions over yesterday, where private sector demonstrated where their investments are concretely going not only into food and nutrition, but again into some of the much needed areas that build up strong food systems. More importantly, as we take this discussion to the macro level, voluntary corporate actions and accountabilities are so critical to support the implementation of national food systems pathways and nationally determined contributions. Those who've had the opportunity, there are also some excellent country level pitches talking about the importance of investments in food systems. And that's where the private sector accountability mechanism comes in. Towards these goals, Excellencies, ladies, the UN Global Compact, along with our partners, has facilitated consultations on corporate accountability across a broad range of stakeholders, exploring how key metrics and data will enhance accountability and align corporate actions with government goals and with the Sustainable Development Goals. We've heard from a number of our country consultations that this accountability framework must include, for example, energy efficiency, logistics efficiency, and innovation, again, driven by the private sector. Others have called for alignment pathways, innovative financing, which we've heard a lot through yesterday's deliberations, and incentives and the importance of multi-stakeholder cooperation and partnerships. Others have talked about the needs for standardized protocols and metrics and monitoring instruments. Nonetheless, corporate accountability is so important because governments, regulators, and standard setters have the opportunity to signal what good looks like, and more importantly, looks like. This is not about perfection, it's about progress towards improving and contributing to food systems transformation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, later this morning at 11 a.m., we will be making an announcement about a collaboration towards a corporate accountability consultation framework. So I invite you to join us at 11 a.m. in CR5 to discuss this further. It's absolutely important to have multi-stakeholder collaboration as we look at progress driven by the private sector to contribute to this important topic of food systems. Thank you, Massimo.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And again, the importance of corporate accountability, but also understanding that we are looking at the system and not just at one dimension of the system. So this framework needs to include urgency, efficiency, nutrition, logistics, alignment to the food system pathways potentially, and also to standardize protocols and metrics so that we can, in a neutral way, track this accountability framework. Thank you very much. Let me now move to Mr. Peter Baker, President and Chief Executive Officer of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD. Peter, considering the critical role of the private sector, how are you contributing to agri-food system transformation, ensuring an alignment of private sector investment with national priorities? The floor is yours.
Well, good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to be invited on a high-level ministerial panel, which of course in my case is completely inappropriate. Share some reflections from the business community. Firstly, business is not on the sideline of this transformation. It's already in it. Companies across agriculture, food, finance, and retail are rethinking their value chains. They're re-engineering products, cutting emissions, investing in traceability, and ethical climate risks. And they're not doing this out of moral conviction. They're doing this for reasons of competitiveness and resilience. And I think President Lario this morning from IFAD made a very important point. This is not just about transforming the production systems, this is about transforming the complete value chains. Secondly, systemic transformation won't happen through scattered pilots. And that is really where this summit plays a key role. We need to move from fragmented efforts to fast-scaling delivery. The business community has a clear role to play, but it has to happen in partnerships with governments, with finance. And that's why in the business engagement group, with Sanda, with Maximo, and many others, we've been developing 3 tracks for this summit, showing progress, a compendium with more than 30 inspiring real-life co-investment initiatives are in there, unlocking investments with country investment plans, with SMEs making pitches, as well as looking at accountability. And that's my 3rd point. It might be the toughest part of the conversation, but it's important. Maybe I should stop for 30 seconds and explain to the room how business works. Business collects data. It hopes to make better decisions to points that will improve the performance of business. That performance will be disclosed to capital markets, and capital markets will reward the companies that perform well. One of the fundamental mistakes we make in the world today is that capital markets only look at financial results. We need to include the results, both environmental and social. And that's where the accountability framework that Sanda mentioned and that will be further discussed at 11 o'clock this morning is so important. Business is already held accountable. by markets, and by corporate law. We're not afraid of transparency nor of scrutiny, but we do want to be cautious. We need a global standard, not a duplication of disclosure progresses. There is the IFRS, the ISSB. Let's use those type of frameworks to hold business accountable. These accountability frameworks for the food system transformation is critical. It's not theoretical, it should be made practical, focused on outcomes and applied equally to all actors. Because at the end of the day, I know that business is not always the most trusted actor in rooms like this. But I also know that delivery of results builds trust. Trust builds partnerships, and partnerships are what will transform the food system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. I think a perfect link to the accountability framework that is going to be presented later on, but also the importance of the non-inclusion of non-financial resources on environment, and also other factors, other potential negative externalities that we need to look for in these mechanisms of accountability. Clearly, standardizing the accountability and not having many ways of doing this will be extremely useful, and it will be a way also to make it transparent, neutral, and to increase trust in the delivery, which is central. And of course, it's perfectly understandable that businesses are trying to, and as a result, they want to make profits. But that's where the accountability helps to minimize any potential lack of trust and to create an acceleration of this process of scaling up, which is so central. Let me now pass the floor to Professor Joachim von Braun, Center for Development Research, CEF, and University of Bonn. Professor von Braun, could you please tell us about the role of science and ensuring that we transform our agri-food systems to more inclusive, resilient, and sustainable systems? The UN Food Systems Summit has a scientific group, and you are part of it. And you lead also the first scientific group when the summit was started. So please, if you can give us your impressions on this. Thank you very much, Professor von Braun.
For this question. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot do stock taking without research. Research is critical and essential, however, for two aspects of agro-food systems transformation. First, it is providing the insights for accountability at a system level and in detail. And secondly, it is fundamental force of innovation and thereby for the transformation. I applaud the United Nations to have integrated, embedded science, social science, and natural science in the process of the UNFSS summitry and the stock taking. Let me come to the first aspect, research for accountability. Research provides the data and diagnostics for systematic monitoring and assessment of progress or lack thereof. That opens up identifying the causes of performance. Let me give you three examples, big examples. Number one, climate science gives us the perspective of what needs to be done there in relation to a food system transformation. Secondly, modeling the food system functioning and its future. That gives us the insight that the 2030 agenda needs to be rebooted on a new time schedule. Third, research-based analysis provides the insights what are signals of severe hunger, like currently in Darfur and in Gaza. Research also identifies the long-term consequences of starvation, even intergenerational trauma effects, complex effects. Such research can be a basis of violations of human rights and violations of international criminal law and can trigger policy action. Let me come to the second aspect of science. Research is the fundamental force for innovation. Scientific group, together with the academies of science of the world, had proposed 7 major priorities for science to invest in in order to guide the food system transformation. Let me only give you the headlines, which we launched at the summit in 2021. Number one, end hunger and improve diets. 2, de-risk food systems. 3, protect equity and rights. 4, boost bioscience. 5, protect resources, soil, biodiversity, seeds, water. 6, enhance aqua foods along with livestock. And 7, harness advanced technologies in production processing and in the management systems and in engineering. If we need to update our agenda, we need to point to 2 science agenda. We need to point to 2 areas. One is the artificial intelligence that came along in the last 4 years, and secondly, the genetic revolution with gene editing, both offering huge opportunities for the food system transformation. For both these transformative functions of research, the diagnostic one, which I mentioned first, and the science for innovations, we need to scale up investment at country level, partnership at regional and global level. Dr. Chu mentioned the Sevilla conference on finance for development and argued that there was little attention to rural space. I need to unfortunately add that there was, among the 130 plus actions launched there, very little attention to science. That needs to change. The public goods research for agri-food systems, such as protecting the plant genetic resources and soils and understanding climate change, needs public funding. In addition, research cooperation for innovation needs new ways to work with the corporate innovators and startups along value chains with a system perspective. I think this stock taking here is opening up lots of opportunities. We need to look more at success and learning from success. If we look at country statistics, in terms of agriculture, growth performance, capital formation, undernourishment, reduction, and improvement global hunger index, we find some very encouraging examples. Let me just mention some, but there are more. To be mentioned there are Benin, Mozambique, Rwanda in Africa, Vietnam, Colombia, Brazil, Mongolia. So we should look at and learn from these examples. They had significant attention, all of them had significant attention to science and innovation. There's some further good news. We assessed the consideration of science and research in the 118 country reports on national pathways. And we found that more than 60% of these strategies paid significant attention to the role of research, technology, and science for transforming their national food systems. However, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot be sure that science continues to play its strong role. A number of countries around the globe, the freedom of science and the respect for science-based truths is under attack. If we are not watching and fighting this, it will adversely impact also food systems innovation landscape, as for instance, climate-related science and public health-related research, which are so important for the food system transformation. Let me sum up. Science is doing its thing for the food system transformation, but only if the funding is right and the trust in science is continues to be protected. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor von Braun, for bringing such important topic of the relevance of science, not only on accountability, on tracking, on modeling the consequences of our actions, and so on helping us to fundamentally move into the agri-food system transformation, especially when we are facing new shocks that are not expected, and we need to learn from what science has behind. And it's all that you do at the end, how we can keep supporting science, because science doesn't happen over the night. It requires serious work, evidence-based, and it takes time, but it requires proper funding and proper respect and autonomy and independence to be able to be successful. Colleagues, with that, we have finished our panel, so please join me in an applause to thank them for. And now I ask my panel members if they can stay, but I move immediately to interventions from the floor. Our first country is Serbia. Please, if you can intervene, we only have 2 minutes each because we have 10 to go over. Serbia, please. If you need to. Have Serbia? No? Angola? Serbia? Oh.
Good morning. Thank you, moderator. Angola congratulates the organizers of this summit for convening such a timely and necessary dialogue. We align ourselves with the common African position and underscore the need to reinforce national leadership, regional coordination, and shared responsibility in the transformation of food system. Since the 2021 summit, Angola has sought to turn intention into concrete action. Guided by our National Development Plan 2023-2027, we have implemented structural reforms and agricultural policies that place smallholder producers at the heart of our effort. We are rolling out territorial integrated agrarian development program, which link local production, market access, and technological innovation, with a strong focus on women and youth inclusion in rural areas. At the same time, we have adopted a science-based and climate-resilient approach, investing in sustainable agricultural practices and strengthening early warning systems. These efforts are showing promising results, but we recognize that the scale of transformation required exceeds what national capacity alone can deliver. We therefore call for a shift in paradigm. International investment must align with national plans, be and catalytic and support solutions that are scalable, impactful, and sustainable. In this regard, we highlight the loop as a strategic infrastructures to integrate food system across Southern Africa and foster productive inclusion. Angola recently presented its second voluntary national review on the SDG, where food system transformation was identified as one of the 7 key accelerators for sustainable development. This is a cross-cutting commitment that demands integrated response. Transforming food system is not only urgent, it is a historic opportunity to build more resilient territory, more inclusive economy, and better nourished population. Angola stands ready to determination and in partnership to turn promises into tangible results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me pass now the floor to Serbia.
Good morning. Australia's agriculture policies and programs encourage our farmers to be self-reliant while providing the tools they need to innovate and adopt sustainable practices. In our model, Australian farmers fund research and development through levies matched by government funding. In this way, we're building trust and confidence in the partnership between government and our industries. This blended funding framework has been operating successfully now for 30 years and funds our rural research and development corporations. Each of our 15 RDCs focus on a different agricultural industry and undertake a diverse range of research, development, and extension activities that focus on efficiency, productivity, competitiveness, and innovation. Over 50% of our
Свыше
agricultural productivity
50%
growth
нашего
is attributable
роста
to research,
сельскохозяйственной
development, and
производительности
extension
приходится
investments.
на
For
инвестиции в
every
области
dollar the
науки,
government invests in
технологий и
agriculture
инноваций. На каждый доллар,
R&D,
который мы
Australian farmers
вкладываем
generate nearly $8 in return within 10
в
years.
Австралии,
So
$8
this model supports shared
возвращаются за
investment and
счет
shared benefits,
развития.
industry
Это
ownership with public
схема, которая
oversight,
основана на
strategic collaboration, and it also ensures a focus on adoption. Globally, trade distorting agricultural policies continue to grow, as mentioned earlier by our German colleague. This can lead to negative repercussions for agricultural development, farmers, food security, and the environment. The most distorting and harmful policies have provided an average of $472 billion per year from 2019 to 2023. Trends continue, support could reach almost $1.8 trillion annually by 2030, according to estimates by the FAO, UNEP, and UNDP. So we would encourage all of you in attendance to consider the opportunity before us to redirect policies into agricultural research, development, and innovation to fund effective food systems transformation. This has the potential to increase food production, lower prices, increase consumption of nutritious food, support economic development, and reduce emissions from agriculture, ultimately supporting our work and objectives towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have Serbia in the... No? Okay, then let's move to Nepal, please.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a welfare state, we are committed to ensure the right to food of our people. Nepal has enacted the right to food and food sovereignty act. This is not only a legal recognition, but a moral and political responsibility that guides our national actions. Being a small economy marred by climate vulnerabilities and ecosystem fragility, Nepal is bound to develop and strengthen its local food system. It also aligns with our commitment and actions to transforming our food system. We have been supporting local communities and incentivizing youth and women development of local products. Likewise, we have already initiated promoting and supporting the production of indigenous nutritious foods and linking them to the school midday meal, which has helped not only in curbing the malnutrition among the school children, but also in boosting local economy and building resilient local food system. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, being a low-income country, our financial and technical capacity are limited to ensure the smooth transition to the sustainable, resilient, and inclusive food system. I request the global community to help the least developed countries like Nepal in meeting their financing need and capacity building in their endeavor to transform the food system. I do believe that with our renewed commitment, international and collaboration, we shall be able to nourish our people and the planet. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much. Let me pass the floor now to South Sudan.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First, let me give a brief overview on the current state of food security, food system in the country. South Sudan agriculture sector depends heavily on small-scale food producers, subsistence farmers, herders, and fishers. These food systems are particularly vulnerable to many factors, including economic downturns and impact of climate change and conflict. In particular, the heavy reliance on imported food is impacting food prices
exchange rate, and income. Therefore, investment is necessary to transition the country food system from one that relies on food import and humanitarian support to that promotes economic diversification and sustainable development strategy. Investment in the agricultural value chain is crucial for creating jobs, reducing funds, insecurity, reducing food insecurity and malnutrition, enhancing the livelihood of women and youth, and to consolidate peace. Despite these challenges, the government of South Sudan, in partnership with development partners, is working on building resilient, sustainable, and inclusive national food system. Our key achievement on the past 2 years, including of the Food Security Council, which has been renamed the National Food and Nutrition Security Council. The council is a food system governance body restructured to effectively coordinate the implementation of the food policies and programs across various sectors and levels of government. South Sudan, like many parts of the world, is becoming increasingly vulnerable to impact of climate change and its associated economic shock. In anticipation and with the support of the World Bank, a preparedness plan for food and nutrition security crisis has been developed. The plan set protocols for deleting tipping in foods and nutrition security and outline methods for responding to food security crisis. The plan enables the government to monitor risk, coordinate responses, and escalate humanitarian efforts. Recognizing the importance of policies and plan in attracting investment for agriculture development, South Sudan has identified over 100 investment pipelines in its comprehensive agriculture master plan and the irrigation development master plan. We appreciate our collaboration with development partners, FAO, World Bank, and IFAD. Multilateral and regional organizations such as IGAD and the ISAP aligned with international financing institutions. These partnerships are vital as we strive to establish a resilient food system for South Sudan and the surrounding region.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Le pasamos ahora la palabra a Cuba.
Buenos días a todos y todas. Muchas gracias por cederme la palabra para exponer los principales avances que ha tenido Cuba sobre la transformación de los sistemas alimentarios locales. En este sentido, decir que desde la primera cumbre que se realizó en el año 2021, donde nuestro presidente expuso las principales acciones que venía desarrollando el país para garantizar la seguridad alimentaria, incluso en medio de un contexto mundial complejo, bajo el impuesto por los Estados Unidos a nuestro pueblo. Desde ese momento hemos venido haciendo grandes desafíos en cuanto a los sistemas alimentarios locales. Lo primero es ver elaborado un plan de soberanía alimentaria y seguridad alimentaria y nutricional en el país, que es una política, y una ley de soberanía alimentaria y seguridad alimentaria y alimentaria en el país, que es la instrumentación jurídica para esa política, que estos documentos realmente le han proporcionado al Estado y al gobierno las herramientas legales para el logro de un modelo económico, social, productivo, resiliente y sostenible, con la participación de todos los actores de los sistemas alimentarios locales vinculados a la producción, transformación, comercialización y el consumo de alimentos. Nosotros tenemos varias oportunidades en el país para la implementación de la ley, que es uno de los grandes retos que tenemos en estos momentos. En lugar es la voluntad política del pueblo y el Estado encaminada a garantizar esa soberanía alimentaria y seguridad alimentaria de nuestro pueblo. Y hemos venido elaborando y aprobando varias políticas públicas, estrategias y un programa de gobierno recientemente para impulsar e incrementar la producción nacional de alimentos, donde estamos trabajando con 20 programas productivos que hoy son los que van a consolidar los sistemas alimentarios de nuestro país para disminuir las importaciones de alimentos, el empleo de técnicas agroecológicas que tienen esos programas, la innovación local, la asistencia técnica, la extensión agraria, la capacitación, la reducción de las pérdidas y desperdicios, la mejora de las condiciones de vida de las comunidades rurales como componente esencial de la estrategia de desarrollo territorial que estamos llevando a cabo. Recientemente, nuestro país no contaba con una hoja de ruta sobre la transformación de esos sistemas alimentarios y ya contamos con una hoja de ruta que la hemos dado a conocer a la FAO, ya está aprobada, tiene 3 objetivos fundamentales para esa transformación de esos sistemas alimentarios locales con toda la incorporación de esos 20 programas productivos que estamos trabajando. Incluye la hoja de ruta 5 principios fundamentales y hay 7 temas estratégicos fundamentales que estamos trabajando y que están en correspondencia y hacen sinergia y se articulan con los 5 temas estratégicos que tiene tanto el plan de soberanía alimentaria como la propia ley de soberanía alimentaria y seguridad alimentaria y nutricional y que tienen que ver con la gestión, la gobernanza y la institucionalidad, los sistemas de educación, de la cultura y de la comunicación para fortalecer la gestión de los sistemas alimentarios locales, el financiamiento, los incentivos, el entorno económico y social para la producción local, la ciencia, la innovación, la extensión agraria y la agroecología, que ya tenemos una política articulada a la gestión y la gobernanza en los sistemas alimentarios locales, el desarrollo y consolidación de los programas productivos y las cadenas de valor en relación con el balance de alimentos a nivel territorial, la sostenibilidad ambiental en los sistemas alimentarios locales y la calidad e inocuidad y disminución de las pérdidas y desperdicios de alimentos. También la hoja de ruta que ya está publicada.
Por favor, se puede ir terminando porque tenemos que seguir.
Contexto internacional, es un contexto actual de la implementación de la ley, tiene las principales brechas en el sector agroalimentario cubano y tiene 30 acciones que son las que estamos trabajando hoy en el periodo del 20 al 27. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Le pasamos la palabra ahora a Venezuela, por favor.
Buenos días. Ante todo, gracias al gobierno de Etiopía, a las Naciones Unidas, por hacer posible nuestra presencia en este evento. El gobierno bolivariano de Venezuela ha promulgado y consolidado un amplio cuerpo legislativo que promueve, fomenta y protege el derecho humano a la alimentación y el logro efectivo y sostenible de la seguridad y soberanía agroalimentaria de todos los venezolanos y venezolanas. La alimentación en Venezuela tiene rango constitucional y es considerado como un tema de alta prioridad para la seguridad integral de la nación. Sin embargo, es un gran desafío que hasta la fecha ha significado enfrentar las medidas coercitivas unilaterales que violan los derechos de la población y dificultan el acceso al mercado mundial de alimentos, medicamentos e insumos básicos. Para contrarrestar los efectos de las medidas coercitivas unilaterales y el bloqueo comercial a nuestro país, el gobierno bolivariano ha creado un conjunto de acciones y un plan de protección a la población. Y en este sentido se desarrollaron una serie de iniciativas. La más importante fue una alianza con el sector privado y con medianos y pequeños productores organizados. Y se inicia desde 2017 hasta la fecha todo un programa de producción de alimentos. Básicamente, el plan se centró en lograr la seguridad alimentaria del país. Yo puedo decir con toda la propiedad, y están invitados a ir a Venezuela a ver esa experiencia. Hoy hoy Venezuela produce el 96% de lo que consume. Además, ha desarrollado un plan de protección familiar a todas aquellas familias vulnerables, gracias a la organización popular. Y esto es fundamental para nosotros. O sea, gracias a que un conjunto de personas en algunas poblaciones se organizaron para la distribución de alimentos, fue un programa exitoso y además nace espontáneamente en la comunidad. En vista de los resultados, esa propuesta de organización popular se masificó y se convirtió en una política de gobierno, y hoy en día es justamente la principal herramienta en el gobierno para la distribución de alimentos a todos los rincones del país. Esos son los CLAP, son comités locales de abastecimiento y producción, constituidos por personas de la misma comunidad.
Por favor, Venezuela, si puede ir terminando.
Ellos mismos, esas mismas organizaciones son las que se encargan también de todo el tema de protección familiar. Quiero decir que para el 2017 teníamos una vulnerabilidad nutricional del 36% y a la fecha estamos en 4.6%. Y esto ha sido una de las metas logradas en estos años. Quiero decir que los objetivos de la Agenda 2030 es parte de los planes de gobierno, y yo creo que allí está la clave en planes de acción 2030. Y hasta la fecha nos ha dado muy buenos resultados.
Tenemos tiempo limitado, si podríamos terminar, por favor.
Ok. Bueno, con eso cierro. Muchas gracias.
Gracias por su comprensión. Now I give the floor to Togo, please.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by sincerely thanking the organizers of this summit. We are grateful to the UN for its visionary leadership and dedication to advancing sustainable food system. My name is Mila Aziable, and I stand before you today on behalf of a country that believes in transformation, not just in word, but through action. Under the leadership of the President of the Council, His Excellency Professor Dimna Nyasingbe, Togo is working every day to build a food system that is more resilient, more inclusive, and ready for the future. First, plan back to our young people and women with 231 planned agricultural zones covering 37,000 hectares dedicated to production and opportunity. Second, we are improving access to inputs, water, and equipment through the distribution of subsidized fertilizer, over 5,000 solar-powered irrigation kits, and the establishment of regional mechanization centers in every part of the country, easing the burden of farm work. Third, we are investing in local processing. With projects like Kara Agropole and the industrial platform, we are turning crops like cotton, soya, or cashew into value, jobs, and food sovereignty. Fourth, we are planning for the future. We have created the Agricultural Transformation Agency, and we will launch this year the National Agricultural Modernization Program. Fifth, ladies and gentlemen, we know this. We cannot feed our land if our people do not have access. That's why we are investing in rural water system and boreholes to support both communities and a sustainable climate-smart agriculture. And we believe in starting early. Our National School Meals Program, supplied by local farmers, helps children learn and grow, while supporting rural economies and fighting hunger at the roots. But we also know that we cannot do it alone. That's why Togo calls for greater international solidarity and for innovating, flexible, and context-based financing to help us go further and faster. Feeding Africa means investing in peace, in fairness, and in the future of our continent.
The time to act is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Togo. The last two, very quick, stand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Let me thanking our hosts, Ethiopia and Italy, as well as the UN System and Coordination Hub for organizing this important event. Sweden remains fully committed to sustainable food systems, transformation, and to supporting the UN Food System Summit processes. And I've listened with great interest today to the progress and adaptation that is taking place in countries and organizations since the last stocktake. Since that, Sweden has updated its national food strategy, reaffirming our goal of a competitive agri-food value chain that aligns increased production with our environmental objectives and supports livelihoods and sustainable development. A key focus of this update was ensuring effective implementation through broad collaboration. The government convened dialogues and tables with stakeholders from government, private sector, and civil society. This inclusive process generated over 1,200 concrete proposals, reflecting strong engagement across Swedish society. One crucial takeaway was the need for clear, measurable targets to guide our efforts and track progress, which has been addressed in the updated strategy. Internationally, Sweden continues to contribute through development cooperation. Just last week, we adopted a new development cooperation strategy for sustainable growth and green transition, allocating nearly $1.1 billion over the next 4 years. This will directly support sustainable food systems and food security and climate adaptive agriculture in partner countries. Excellencies, transforming global food systems is our shared responsibility. Sweden is committed to working together with all partners to accelerate this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now move to Algeria. The last speaker, Algeria.
في البداية أود أن أتقدم الشكر الجزيل لمنظمي هذه الجلسة وكذا المداخلات القيمة التي تم إحاطتنا بها. في هذا الشأن فإن الجزائر تؤمن بأن تحقيق الأمن الغذائي هو ركيزة أساسية للكرامة والسيادة، وترى أن تحويل النظم الغذائية بشكل عادل وشامل يتطلب قبل كل شيء تنسيقا فعالا بين العمل والاستثمار والمساءلة. فالشعوب لا تحتاج فقط بل إلى التزامات تترجم ميدانيا واستثمارات عادلة توجه نحو الفئات الهشة والمناطق المهمشة، وآليات واضحة تضمن الشفافية والمساءلة الجماعية. وفي هذا الإطار تشيد الجزائر بالجهود المتكاملة التي تبذلها كل من منظمة الأغذية والزراعة وبرنامج الأغذية العالمي والصندوق الدولي للتنمية الزراعية من أجل بناء نظم غذائية أكثر استدامة قادرة على الصمود أمام الأزمات المناخية والجيوسياسية وخاصة في المناطق النامية، غير أن الحديث عن العدالة الغذائية لا يكتمل دون التوقف عند المآسي الجارية فيما تشهده غزة اليوم من تجويع ممنهج وحرمان جماعي من الغذاء بعد ويعد وصمة عار في جبين الإنسانية، وأكثر من 1 مليون إنسان هناك غالبيتهم من الأطفال والنساء يعانون من المجاعة والتجويع في انتهاك صارخ لكل القيم والمبادئ الإنسانية. وانطلاقا من هذا الواقع المؤلم تضم الجزائر صوتها إلى صوت الأمم المتحدة الذي أكد أمس في كلمته الافتتاحية على ضرورة عدم استخدام الغذاء كسلاح ضد الشعوب، مشددا على أن الغذاء يجب أن يبقى حقا إنسانيا مكفولا لا أداة ضغط أو عقاب جماعي. ومن هذا المنبر تدعو الجزائر إلى تحرك دولي عاجل وفوري يهدف إلى ضمان إيصال المساعدات الغذائية والإنسانية إلى غزة دون شروط أو عوائق، والعمل الجاد على وضع حد لهذا الانتهاك السافر للقانون الدولي الإنساني وللممارسات اللا إنسانية التي تحرم شعوبنا بأكملها من حقها في الحياة الكريمة. ندعو أن يتم تضمين هذا النداء في مخرجات التي ستضمنها الوثيقة النهائية التي سيقدمها الأمين العام في الجلسة الختامية لهذا المؤتمر. وختاما، تؤكد الجزائر التزامها بدعم جهود التحول الغذائي في إفريقيا وتقف مستعدة لتقاسم تجاربها لا سيما في مجال الزراعة الصحراوية من أجل بناء مستقبل غذائي مشترك أكثر عدالة وأكثر إنسانية. وشكرا.
Thank you very much. So, colleagues, let me now invite Excellency Salah Ahmed Jama, Deputy Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Somalia, to please do the closing. Thank you very much, Excellency.
Mr. Moderator, first of all, allow me to begin by thanking the panelists who are from a very diverse background, representing governments, the private sector, and academia, and sharing with us some very informative and enlightening insights on how we could work together collectively. As the title of this panel clearly indicates, the key operative word is how do we collectively together transform food systems? Because we all are interconnected as humans. And as has been expressed by representatives from Algeria, the issue of food security and the consequence and the direct consequence of particularly man-made food insecurity can best be understood by taking into stock the prevailing inhumane conditions in Gaza, as hundreds and thousands of vulnerable people, children, and women are starved and on the edge of vanishing. So we stand here in solidarity with people across the world who for various reasons are subject to food insecurity. I come from Somalia, Africa, and we have a very practical experiences of how conflict, disasters, climate shocks, and other phenomena collectively can bring about food insecurity and risk people's lives. Allow me to appreciate the different perspectives that have been expressed here today. It is evident that if we pool our resources together in the form of knowledge, innovation, and technology, if we understand the respective roles, the desirable roles of the private sector in generating finances, and the corporate responsibility perspectives and accountability mechanisms that have been expressed here are implemented, and governments provide leadership and accountability to their citizens, we could certainly achieve the sustainable development goals of eradicating hunger. Over 600 million people are at the risk of food crisis, and in my country, Somalia, as I stand here before you today, there are regions that are experiencing severe drought. People have lost their lives and their lives are at risk. It is therefore very important to understand that it takes a very coordinated and collective effort to cope with these implications. The importance of governance has been highlighted, and in our country, we have started only recently to understand the need to have an integrated and a coordinated agenda towards our national pathways to food systems transformation. Our national development plan has been changed to national transformation plan, and food systems transformation is at the center of it. We're linking and embedding food systems transformation into our climate policies, agricultural policies, and water management policies. We surely appreciate the role of international organizations like FAO, IFAD, the World Bank, and others who work with us, provide us the technical know-how and resources. I must also appreciate that there is a collective consensus among all of us here that there are particular set of countries like Somalia and others who are at the receiving end of climate shocks, migration, and other conflicts. Therefore, it's very important that we understand the very peculiar and specific conditions that should allow us to direct financing, development financing, climate financing to these countries. Of course, being mindful that we are in an ever-transforming world in which climate or development financing has not been very forthcoming. We also appreciate that in this second stocktake, we're able to have an agreement on the need to have measurable parameters so that we can track our progress. The key word here is sustainability. And as the Secretary General has expressed yesterday, that 1/3 of the world's east and 70% of the world's water goes to agriculture. So if we can work together collectively and appreciate the role of science and solidarity, perhaps we can achieve the goals that we have assigned for ourselves as nations, as communities, and more importantly, as the people from across the world. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to address you, and we appreciate that.
So colleagues, thank you very much to all, and please join me in an applause to all the speakers. Thank you.